This is how I play video games. Kill la Kill was an over-the-top, ridiculous anime about people becoming ridiculously strong whenever they put on clothes filled with something called life fibers. And it follows the story of a young teenage girl who's trying to discover more about the murder of her father, who did it, why did it happen, and basically take revenge, that whole shebang. Honestly, it was a stupid, hilarious show that didn't really take itself all that seriously and had some great visuals and music, and it was just interesting, silly, the characters were fantastic, all the fight scenes were brilliant, and yeah, it was filled to the brim with fan service, just across the board. Like, not just the girls, but guys too. No one was safe. Kill la Kill, the game, is literally the anime made into a game in a sort of what-if scenario from a different perspective with a slightly different storyline. Tons of over-the-top anime battles for you to play in, i.e. its genre, the battle action fighter, which is a mouthful. But it really is this. It's what it says on the tin. An anime, yet somehow a game. It plays out just like Jump Force as a comparison, a simple selection of move types, close range combo attacks, range combo attacks, and counter attacks, and charge variations of each. Then you've got 3 super versions of each of those showing off super anime-esque animations as you watch your character absolutely just demolish the opponent in different ways. It's simple, it's satisfying, and hey, it also gets pretty repetitive pretty quickly. And that's the drawback when your combat is going to be as simple and bare bones as this one. However, I don't really think that's the purpose here. It's not made to be a super in-depth fighter game. It's meant to be putting you into that original anime and feeling like you're in there playing those characters, and it kills it with that. The visuals are spot on. The cinematics themselves look crisp and clear, somehow keeping that anime vibe while in 3D, and everything flows really well. You'll enjoy a brief bit of combat after you wipe the floor with your enemy, and then get an awesome cutscene as you watch the story unfold. Since the story is actually an alternative from the original and from a different perspective, a fan of the original show will get to re-experience it in a new way, with most of the faff cut out, getting straight to the good part. That, however, makes for a very confusing and most likely awful experience for someone who's never watched the show before and doesn't already know what's going on. It's like it was made specifically for fans. The pacing is super fast, and it's just too much information to take in if you don't already know those details. There's currently 8 playable characters, and they're apparently going to add more in a free DLC soon, which is pretty sweet, but each character does play out mostly the same, like I said earlier, close range attack, range attacks, and counters. Speaking of counters, yep, that's a lot of counters. Despite the bare bones nature of the combat, it really feels like you're playing that character. You're able to do all that ridiculous anime shit you saw in the show whenever and however you want. It's great. I absolutely love the keyboard man here in the show. Every time Hyuka here speaks, his little turtleneck opens and closes at will, and that shit just made me laugh every time. And here it is happening in the game. That's perfect. Then when you're playing as him, just stand still and look at him. God, I love that. It's so stupid and so great. The man just can't stand still for a second. The story mode itself will be a short but sweet experience, over in a few hours but entertaining throughout. As alternative modes to the story mode, we have versus mode where you can battle out against the characters you've unlocked in the story mode so far, against AI or play against friends. And this was a great way for me to mess around on each character, which is the main selling point for me personally. Alternatively, you've got a practice mode for trying different combos and learning the basics if you wish to do that. And finally, the gallery mode. Yeah, it actually has a gallery mode. Basically, you pop the characters in from the game, assuming you've unlocked them in the story first, and I guess you just put them in different poses, in different backgrounds, like different areas. I can't think of a single reason why you would do this. It's not like you're trying to see any specific shots or angles of the characters, is it? Right, guys? Shameless. Outside of all that, the music throughout is fantastic. I forgot how good the soundtrack for this anime really was, and I was really enjoying reliving it in the game. It's too often that I just forget about music and anime, and the original soundtracks made specifically for each show, each anime, is madness. Like, the quality. We're very blessed, and I feel like I take that for granted, so I need to make sure I go out of my way to listen to more soundtracks after I finish a show. Alright, all of that info is cool and all, but how does the game run? Well, unfortunately, not well. I've experienced FPS drops in half the battles I've fought. As you can see, it really slows down sometimes. Not to mention, on my very first launch of the game, I watched the opening cinematic and got a black screen for like 5 minutes before I gave up and just reopened the game. Luckily, that was the only crash I experienced personally, but I've seen reports in Steam reviews that it is a known problem, which, by the way, the Steam reviews themselves are mixed. My final pros and cons for Kill la Kill, if are, Great visuals and art style, brilliant soundtrack, a fun, alternative story to relive the experience, and it's a simple and easy to pick up game. Meanwhile, there are some performance issues, hopefully to be addressed in a patch soon. The story itself will be confusing and poorly paced for someone who doesn't already know Kill la Kill, and the game's length is quite short. And with a whopping $60 price tag at release, that is simply overpriced. So my final conclusion is that it's fantastic if you're a super die-hard Kill la Kill fan, and not so much otherwise. If you're a fighter game fan, for example, this one's a flashy experience, but not very in-depth. So pick this one up if you like the show, when the price tag is lowered a bit and the game does see some performance patches. Otherwise, I hope this quick look at Kill la Kill If was interesting and also hopefully useful to you. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and I will see you next time.